Hello, everybody. My name is Rick DeRico. I'm the Director of Public Relations at Transfinder. We are happy that you could join us today for a very, very special webinar that Transfinder is doing in partnership with School Bus Fleet. It's about Servicefinder because safety starts in the garage. You can do put all that work into your amazing routes and where you put those stops. But if your bus is not safe, if you don't have everything up to snuff, then you have a chink in your link there, and we got to fix that. And that's where Servicefinder comes in. We have a great panel discussion today. We're going to get into some of the nuts and bolts of Servicefinder. If you've heard of Servicefinder from 4, 5, 6 years ago, it is not your father's Servicefinder. So we just want you to make sure you stay tuned because we got a lot of new developments that are coming in Servicefinder. I want to just give you a little bit of a layout here. This is a very interactive webinar. So ask questions. There's a question box there. So we'll be monitoring that. So please put in questions there, and we'll either answer them in real time or we'll get to them before the end of the webinar. We also have Zach Morin, who's our Sales Enablement and Engineering Manager, joining our Transfinder's President and CEO, Antonio Civitella, who are going to talk about, kind of give you the big picture in about a minute or two. And then we'll get to our panelists, Trace and Craig. Trace Johnson is with a contractor, Palmer Bus. Craig Lips is with Guilderland Central School District, not too far from Transfinder's headquarters. We've been wanting Guilderland for a long time. It is great to have Craig with us and Guilderland on board. Go Dutchman. And then after Trace and Craig, Zach and Tony are going to get into some really what's all the bells and whistles that Servicefinder has and all the capabilities that we're working on as well. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Tony and Zach. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Exciting times, of course, middle of June, a little bit of, if you have some kids there graduating, it's a little bit of sad, but also a little exciting. We always love this time of year because it always reminds us of how, those, when we're younger, when we're all going to school, I was like, getting excited. Our summer is about to start. And some of you have already started your summer vacation, but upstate New York here, they're just about to close down for the season, and it's just always exciting. But, we look at servicing vehicles. That's really 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every single day of the month, and it's never ends. So we're excited. We're going to be talking about a lot about our latest functionality and really where we see this type of product really play a big role in this space here.
Absolutely. Tony, I know you're talking about June always feels like the start of summer. Down here in Texas, we're deep into summer already. It feels like it's been going for a while, but excited about what we're going to cover today. Like Rick mentioned, we've got some great panelists here. We'll hear from Palmer and Guilderland Central School District there. But what we want to go into too is a little bit on the software as well, digging into some of the safety functionality. How preventative maintenance and vehicle inspections can make your operation safer. Also the efficiency capabilities, right? Managing costs, managing work orders, parts and inventory, billing, how you can see a real return on investment with the software there. And of course, some of the outputs and KPIs that you could track. So we'll dig a little bit deeper into the software. A piece I really wanted to highlight is, why does all this matter? Why talk about the software? Why the need for software? We're seeing it all over the industry, right? There's a lot of changes happening within fleet management and student transportation. Staff shortages are happening, budget shortages, changes in technology have been a major part of the conversation. And then just constantly keeping up with regulations that are happening at the DOT level, the state level. Having tools that can make you more efficient, make you safer, make you more effective are really key. And so I'm excited to hear from some of our panelists about what they're doing to kind of keep ahead of some of these challenges. But for me, it's really just that perspective of shifting your operation from being more reactive, trying to keep up with things, to a more proactive, where you feel like you know what's coming. You can kind of schedule out your day, your week, your month, and that you're staying on top of those changes as they're happening a little bit, right?
And Zach, I've got to add, things are so expensive. Everything is so much more expensive than just even 5 years ago or even 10 years ago, that when you're looking at preventing issues, is that to track, it's really, we emphasize so much on data-driven decisions to see maybe there is time that maybe, we get attached to some things. Maybe you got to attach with bus 99. Maybe it's time to let that one go because it's just costing us more money than really, it doesn't make any sense. But maybe, as much as we didn't like bus 35, it's got another good year or two. So these are things that you can make decision on which one should really leave your place before than others. And that, there's a little bit of comedy behind it, but those are serious money. Bring that back to how can we always talk about efficient routing, how we can minimize the resources and miles, but we're talking about hardware at this point. Can we find a way to track all this information? So, and there's, by the way, there's a section here on the bottom. There's any questions, we'll do our best to type away. So I think I see on the bottom here. So go ahead and post some new questions. If you're out there, even just say what your temperature is over there and where you're from, just anything.
Thank you very much. By the way, since we've got Texas and Minnesota on here, Jack, what's the temperature where you are?
I think we're having a little bit of a cool wave on us. I think we're in the low 90s here right now, so it's not too bad.
We're going to have a heat wave here in New York. It's going to be upper 90s. Trace, how about you? Where you are?
We're at about 80 today, but we are experiencing a lot of rain this week. So we have like flood watches and stuff in Minnesota right now.
Wow. Well, thanks so much for joining. So you should also know that this is being recorded. So we will, anything that you see here, you go, boy, I really wish my team could have seen this or my superintendent could see this. We will have it available and we'll get it to you. I'm going to start with you, Trace. You have a unique role because you're a contractor. And so you deal with many different districts, rural, I'm assuming rural to city. And so maybe just for starters, tell us, now I have you as your title as Director of Student Routing and Technologies at Palmer Bus Service. Is that correct? Tell me a little bit about that role, yes. And then give me a sense of the scope of Palmer Bus Service.
Yeah. So thank you for having me on today. Yeah, so my name is Trace Johnson, Director of School Bus Technology for Palmer Bus Service. We are based solely in the state of Minnesota. We currently actually serve 28 school districts. We just contracted with 2 new school districts recently, so we are continuing to grow as a company. We have been in the service for 50 years. We are celebrating our 50th anniversary as a company. And so, yeah, over those 50 years, we definitely have grown and solely just, again, contract with school districts around the state of Minnesota to provide student transportation. So my role essentially is to oversee, manage, help train and implement Transfinder products in our company, as well as Zonar. We use Zonar to do GPS tracking and use that as well in our company. So my job is to manage those 2 technologies in our school buses. We have recently brought on Servicefinder into our company. We had an old software that we were using to do fleet management for our buses, but it was a product that wasn't necessarily solely designed for school buses. And we were definitely looking for something that would be able to help us better manage our fleet. And I believe Tony was kind of saying just a few minutes ago about how costs of school buses have gone up in the past couple of years. So, what can we do as a company to help manage and keep our fleet to the best standards? And so that we're not always having to buy new equipment, but keep our equipment up to standard and keep it running as long as possible. So that's kind of what led us into searching for a new software, which we have landed with Servicefinder on that. A few of the big reasons that we decided to do that is just the easy usage of the software. If you have any other Transfinder products, it is the same sort of concept and layout as those of using the grid layouts, using the filter options, having your toolbar on the left-hand side of your screen to easily access anything that you may need within the software. So we have other products, and so implementing this was something that was just a kind of easy given for us as a company. We have some mechanics who may be not the most technical. So having something that is easy for them to learn and be able to use as they're working on the fleets across our company was definitely another thing that we needed to make sure we were able to provide to our mechanics and our staff. We service school districts of all different sizes. We are all over the state. We have operations that maybe run 8 school buses, up to operations that run 20, 30 school buses in a 2 or 3 tiered busing system. So we have, a wide range of locations across our state that serve each of our school districts. So kind of how that works is we have a site or a location, as we say, that is at each one of our cities or towns where our school district resides that we contract with. So having a software where we are able to specifically set up a user to manage that specific fleet that's in that specific location is something that we definitely really needed, so that they are able to easily go into Servicefinder, pull up just their assets that service their school district, so that they are able to work on that equipment, manage that equipment, put in, fuel usage, the odometers, different things like that. And then from an admin standpoint of where I stand, being able to see all of that, of, what is each one of those specific locations doing when it comes to their services, their work orders, or any reports that they may be running. So that was definitely something that we needed to make sure that we were able to have as a company to be able to use. So we were able to go in, set up specific locations, which was a huge selling point for us to be able to use Servicefinder, and then set up users specific to those locations, and even restricting some of those users to what can they do in Servicefinder and what are things maybe we don't want them to either access or edit or be able to view. And we have people in our company, there's a handful of us that have admin rights that we set up, where they are the ones that go in and maybe edit more data about the vehicle, or are able to go in and move our assets from one location to another if we have any sort of fleet sharing across our company, which we do from time to time. Another thing that we really like about Servicefinder is the inventory, where our mechanics are able to go in and add in their inventory in there. So when they are working on services or any sort of work orders on the vehicles, they're able to just see what's available to them, and also have the availability to, as they are working on services or work orders, to do a quick add if that inventory is something that they didn't have on hand and quickly purchased. Another thing that is nice about the inventory is our locations that may be close to each other. They're able to go in and see, hey, what does our neighboring school district have on hand that we can maybe borrow from them, since we don't have that in our inventory. So for our mechanics to be able to share that inventory across the company is definitely something that they really enjoy and really like. Within those services and work orders, that is something that we really enjoy being able to have, especially for any of our mid services or full services. We're able to put in the odometer readings, the mileages off our bus, and that does an automatic track for us as a company. So our mechanics know exactly when a mid service is due or a full service is due on an asset. So it's an easy way for us just to keep up to date on any services that may need to be done with our equipment. And even again with the work orders, if there's a seat repair that needs to be done or a window repair that needs to be done, anything like that, being able to quickly go in and use the work order function is something that is very, very easy for some of our mechanics who, again, maybe not be the most tech savvy, but again, just the user availability of the software has really provided us with a great tool to give to our mechanics to quickly be able to work on their work orders and stay on top of the work that they need to continue to do. Another thing that we have as a company is a body shop that we are able to use, again, to, can we keep our buses in service longer, keep them up to date? Is that anything that is on the outside of the bus or even on the underside of the bus that we can do to keep it in service longer? So we have incorporated Formfinder, actually, where our mechanics are able to fill out a request of, maybe issues that they see, some rust that is on the bus, and send that to our body shop so that they are able to, say, okay, yeah, bring that into our body shop. Let's do a repair on that and keep our buses in service longer. So incorporating Formfinder was definitely another huge selling point for us as a company to be able to use with Servicefinder. And we are looking to even continue growing that as we move forward with Servicefinder and even other Transfinder products, is using Formfinder for our drivers, managers, and mechanics. We also even use our body shop for outside clients. So people can come into our company and say, hey, we have a school bus that needs some body work done. So we're able to use Servicefinder to put in, invoices and different requests like that to be able to tell our outside clients or customers of, how this is what the cost is going to be, and use those invoice function to be able to do that is a great feature. Another feature that I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, is fairly new to Servicefinder is a clock function where our mechanics are able to kind of clock in and clock out so that we're able to manage and see how long it's taking them to work on services or work orders. Again, just going back to, are we being efficient with our time and money as we are working, on our fleet? So in a gist, so far, Servicefinder has been able to provide us at Palmer Bus some great features, and we are looking to continue to grow that. Our staff, our managers, and our mechanics just love how easy it is to be able to do anything. And I kind of like to say that you can almost do anything just with the vehicle data grids of Servicefinder. You can start your work orders, you can look up the detailed information, be able to look up any parts that were used to do any work on the vehicle, how much it's cost us so far to work on that vehicle. So there's just been a lot of great features that we've loved that we've been loving to use so far within Servicefinder. And how quickly our staff has been able to adapt to it is another great thing that we've just absolutely enjoyed about Servicefinder.
Trace, to quote my boss, I think if knowing what's going through Tony's head maybe would be something like, wow, like you just covered a lot of ground. And it was awesome.
Yes.
Seriously. What my takeaway, as I was just like taking some notes here, is just really, literally, it feels like you really feel like you have the sense of like your finger on the pulse of your entire operation, and like minimizing, maybe even to the point where you have no surprises. Like you want to keep all your buses on the road. We're down 5 buses. Now all of a sudden that's going to create a hiccup in our operation. You're minimizing or eliminating surprises.
Yeah,
so there's
absolutely.
A question I want to ask. I want to ask a question about and I think Craig, I know what happens in this part of the country. So someone asked in Texas that the question is, don't school buses have a lifespan of 12 to 15 years, and 15 years to be in operations? I always thought it was a lot less in this region. Trace, obviously you're also in a cold area. Can we add some information about that? Because obviously I always thought it would be 10 and 12. 15 sounds a lot to me, but how can I answer this question here?
Yeah, so with school buses in Minnesota, they can be used as long as they pass the DOT inspection. So as long as the bus is up to the standards by DOT, we are able to use those. With any Type 3 vehicles, it's 10 to 12 years, somewhere in that time range, that those are allowed to be able to be used So it is maybe a little bit different in Minnesota than some other states.
Craig, what about New York? How does that work?
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same here in New York. As long as it passes the DOT inspections and it's roadworthy, they can stay on the road. Rule of thumb is, though, across New York, the school districts, they do a replacement plan of 10 years.
That's right, though. But I think maybe more in the South, we got the salt. We have a lot of different things that eat away at a lot of the undercarriage of the vehicles. I know it has something to do with that, but whenever I'm in Texas, I always see some older cars and look great. So, all right. Well, thank you.
Tony's a car guy. Trust me, he's looking. Tracy, thank you so much. That was great. We're gonna come back to you at the very end of this segment after Craig speaks, just to give us your final takeaways, and then we'll get into the more detailed information from Tony and Zach. Craig, you just left Ravenna, Queen, Selkirk, a smaller school district in New York, and came to Guilderland, which is really one of the largest districts in New York's capital region. One of the things that you did was you wanted to bring all your suite of Transfinder solutions with you, but you can talk about both large districts and small districts and the role that Servicefinder plays in both of those. So take it away. Tell me a little bit about how Servicefinder has worked with you in both of those venues.
All right, yeah, absolutely. At Ravenna, Queen, Selkirk, we operated about 54 buses, so it was a small operation. And everybody knows with the driver shortage issues, mechanics are driving. They do not love it, but if they know it's coming, they're a little less tense about it. They're able to see their workload for the day. We were able to incorporate bus driving into their work orders, so that made it easier for the fleet maintenance supervisor to manage the workflow for the mechanics. And it goes back to like what Trace was saying. It's not difficult to use. It's actually quite easy to use. It's a lot of work loading that thing up, but once it's up and running, oh my God, you can control your workflow. You know your inventory. You know what the expectations are. You know the cost of the bus. We were talking about how high they are now. I mean, we're looking at $160,000 to $475,000. And here in New York State, they're expanding how long they're paying aid on a bus now from 5 to 12 years. So you really have to look at the life of these buses and see, can we keep it another couple of years? Well, you can get your answer real easily with Servicefinder. That was the other part of it too. I was just recently talking to somebody about it. You know, in Servicefinder, you can have multiple users, unlimited users, the access to it, and they can get the data that they need. And that's another feature, the easy access to our own data. This is the only software that we can get easy access to our own data. Our treasurer at Ravenna, Queen, Selkirk uses the Transfinder solutions to get the information she needs. She doesn't have to call them. She doesn't have to bug them. Nobody has to dig for it. She uses it. And she's not even transportation. So to be able to make those sound decisions, to be able to move money, to be able to control cost, it's right in front of you at your fingertips. Everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. It's almost like a task management system, which hint, we could use that on the Transfinder, the Route Finder side too, guys. It's actually phenomenal the way that you can use it and control your shop. Also, like they had a mechanic getting ready to retire over at Ravenna, Queen, Selkirk. They made their decision based on the workload down the road. You can see, as long as you want, how far out, what your workload's going to look like, of course, based on service. They opted to not replace them. You know, the population has shrunk over the years, less kids, lower enrollment, lower pool of mechanics out there. Did they really need this mechanic? Nope. They didn't. You know, I always encourage them, hire a mechanic anyways, because they're going to drive a bus. So, but either way, Tony mentioned data-driven decision-making. That is so huge. And I can't really impress on anybody how much or how important it is to have easy access to your own data to make those decisions. And like Rick said earlier, safety starts in the garage. You know, that's where the transportation connects to the roadways, is the vehicle, the bus itself. And everything is instantaneous. As long as your mechanics are plugging in their work orders, as soon as they're done, you can see what's done, you can see what's ready, you can see what's coming down the pipeline, and everybody's on the same page with that easy access, the easy user-friendly software that Servicefinder really is. It sounds complex. It is complex, but it's easy to use.
Craig, a couple quick things I'm thinking. One is, I remember when I met you at one of a trade show, and you did tell me you were a little worried about implementing. This is back when you were at Ravina. Your mechanics, are they going to like this? And you were a little worried about some pushback, and you were pleasantly surprised at how they actually loved it. And they felt like it was, as you already said, easy to use. Folks at Gilliland feeling the same way?
They are actually. The key to it is the Transfinder training. Your guys do an awesome job training these people. And mechanics, they want to turn wrenches. They don't want to touch computers. They want to mess around with tablets. And you know what? The time that it takes to put it into the system is like half the time they used to spend on it. So they're saving minutes, which add up to hours over time. And when you talk to the mechanics, you ask them, what do you want? And listen to your mechanics, see what they have to say. And when you start looking at Servicefinder, you're going to find that all their desires are in there, and all your desires are in there, because you're going to have the information that you need to be able to make the sound decisions, for your customer, for your business, whatever it is. But all that information's there. And again, mechanics, listen, change, nobody likes change. You got to get through that little piece of change management. But once they meet with the Transfinder trainers and they actually put their hands on it, they're off and running. The one mechanic that was reluctant to even dig his heels into it, he wanted more training. I'm like, well,
awesome.
What more is there?
That's awesome.
So yeah, and he's like, I don't know anything about computers, but I'm willing to give it a try. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do it. Well, needless to say, a year later, a couple years later now, he's their head mechanic and Servicefinder all day long. He relies on it all day long.
So whether you're a small district, one of the things I like about your role, Craig, is because you can give the picture both of a small district, because a small district say, look, we don't need all the bells and whistles. Maybe we don't really need something this robust. Or on the other side, I don't know, can these guys, we're a big district, can this, handle the heavy lift that we would require, the complexities of a, large city school district? What would you say to them? Because you have that picture.
Well, first of all, when it comes to a small operation, $160,000, $180,000 vehicle is a huge percentage of your budget. Okay, so right there, start right there, your budget, and then your manpower, the workload. Do you really need that? People rely so much on what's in the back of their mind or what they saw on paper, and the real data is in front of you in Servicefinder. The larger operations, it's teamwork, and man, it even goes even better, with the teamwork in the larger operations. To me, it's fascinating. It goes great in the small operations because you can make sound decisions and you can go to sleep at night knowing that when those drivers get on the road the next morning, their buses are in the right shape and they're ready to rock and roll.
That's awesome. I think I was going to ask you guys for takeaways, but that's a good one. Going to sleep at night, you can rest easy. Tony talks about, we have this whole acronym of peace of mind. What's it, Tony? You got the peace plan. Not for the Middle East. That's a bigger lift, but there's a peace plan about planning and executing, revising those plans and everything else. And so being able to sleep at night. Great. Trace and Craig, stick around. I'm sure Tony's going to bring you in, and Zach as well. But I'm going to turn it over to Tony and Zach to kind of get into the nitty gritty for those of those who may not be familiar with Servicefinder. So Tony, Zach, take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. Some really good takeaways hearing from both Trace and Craig there. Tony, I want to talk about some of the key features of the software here, and they are key, but you also hear them, and one of the biggest, most important factors is ease of use, right? You can have the most robust software, but if your technicians aren't going to get in there and they're not going to use it every day, it's really not helping your operation, right?
Well, Zach, that's right where just before this meeting, I was meeting with with a sergeant, and he was really trying to not hurt my feeling. I could tell. The way he said it's like, listen, I'm a computer guy and I love computers and I have no problem. But if you really want the buy-in from other people, and again, he was trying to not hurt my feeling. And I knew he was getting there, but the best way to communicate sometimes is just don't say anything. Let them say everything. That way you then know what they're thinking. Really, what he wanted to tell me is that if a product's not easy to use, I don't care how much features, functionality, and the cost, if people feel that it's not easy to use, or I think this is even more, it's the integrity. And this is where, we work so hard at making sure this integrity. You say, oh, it's going to do A, B, C. And then someone that's already a little bit skeptical doesn't do A, B, C, you're done. You got one shot. And this is where, so proud of our service team is that they work night and day. And of course, now this time of year that we are working so hard to make sure their questions are answered. But we also know you could have 99 great experience. It's that one experience that maybe it's not so great that could set us back. So we know it. We never take things for granted, but that was just a little while ago that it's got to be easy to use. And also, if you say it's going to do something, it better do it.
Absolutely. Well, let's highlight a few of the features we do want to dig into with our platform. And again, a lot of these features are things that people are doing manually today. They're using multiple vendors to do, it requires a lot of modules. One thing that's great about Servicefinder is all of this is under one hood. It's under the same product there. And that includes things like driver inspections, right? So we'll take a look at how you can do a driver inspection, tie that right into the platform, maintaining your entire vehicle history, right? This includes your inspections, your defects, your fuel, your work orders, warranties, all of that stuff. The work order management, Trace talked about how his technicians are able to manage everything from a vehicle rolling in to rolling out the shop, all through that work order management tool. Of course, preventative maintenance, scheduling that service is really key to saving costs, right? We know how much more expensive it is to have a breakdown out on the road versus catching it through preventative maintenance there. And then finally, Craig talked about this a lot, the outputs, right? The dashboards, the reports, how easily can you get your data there? So those are a few of the things I wanted to make sure we're touching on, hitting on. From there, we can jump right into it. Anything else to add before we get going with it, Tony?
I think clearly the last part is where you have a good product. A lot of products you can do inspections and you can get a history. You should be able to do work orders. You should be able to schedule services. But what type of data can you see? Because like Craig said, it's not just him and his team that are going to look at this data. It could also be some decision makers that control their budgets. So they got to be able to, again, it's this trust and verify. We hear this all the time. Say, you're sure we need to spend this kind of money? Well, sometimes if they could come to their own conclusion on this is why it is this cost, it's why we need to, find savings, and it's all right there. I think that last piece to me is it all of it. It is decision based on data, and if you can't pull data out of it, or you have to call us every other day to get data out of it, then we didn't do a good job. We didn't make it user friendly. And by the way, user friendly sometimes has that connotation of just 2-3 big buttons and it's just an easy button. No, this is a very complex. If you look at, I want to get a little technical here. When you look at our data structure, again, data structure, all the different tables are behind the scene. Servicefinder has significantly a lot more tables and files than our routing product. Yeah, there's just so much more to it because of the data and the relationship. So massive product.
Absolutely. Well, let's start it off by taking a look at driver inspections. Now, this is a piece we got to understand. A lot of people on this call are maybe not using a software solution for this today, right? Driver inspections are maybe still being done pencil and paper. And the use case I hear all the time is, something simple like a damaged seat or something like that. You'll have a driver, fill it out on their inspection form. They'll go in and tell the shop, hey, I have an issue. It's not a priority, right? So they go in the next week, all of a sudden they feel like, hey, is anyone paying attention to this, right? So with the driver inspection form, the nice thing is it can go directly from the driver filling it out in a pre-post trip inspection. They can mark something as defective, and maybe this is a game stopper, right? Maybe that you're not driving that vehicle out, or maybe it's something smaller, like a tear in a seat there that you're going to go drive your run, but it's got to get looked at some point. And what happens with our driver inspection forms is those can feed right back into the Servicefinder platform, so your technicians can see it, they can schedule it, and they can make sure they catch it. It creates that kind of workflow, so those kind of small issues don't get missed through the cracks there, right?
And that we can't overemphasize that part. You could do inspections and you could electronically get it stored. Of course, there's a lot of products out there, but does it trigger something? Does it trigger something in Servicefinder? Can you get emails? Can you start getting all these things saying, hey, something's going on here? Those are the things that we know how important it is. In order to sleep at night, be able to sleep at night, we want to be able to be, if someone took an inspection and somehow it didn't get to the right person or the mechanic, that there was an issue, it's just on a piece of paper, or it could also be digitized, it could be some computer, but then it never gets done or nobody knows about it. That's horrible. And this is where we want to make sure it is peace of mind. An inspection is done. We know that all the different elements that has to be inspected at that moment at that location gets done, but it gets reported and an action is taken. When Zach talked about the workflow, it is the entire workflow. We don't want an inspection that was done and somehow not elevated to the level it should be. And our system is fully automated, that we want to be able to not miss anything. When I say automated, it is hands off. It just does it. But for those people out there that still want to be able to control, you have a lot of action that you can take manually. But clearly, once you set it and forget it, why would you want to do anything manually in this point of view here?
Absolutely. And, again, talking about as inspections feed into the system, where do those go? Where does that live? How easily can you find it? That vehicle history is a really key part of the platform, right? And again, if you imagine you're using no software, I'm sure you got the filing cabinets. We've talked about that, but even other platforms, you're having to chase down that vehicle history, chase down what's covered under warranty, what parts were used here. Tony, a really good case I hear all the time is, a vehicle rolls into the shop and needs something major, like a transmission repair. And they go, look, I know we've done something like this in the past 6 months, but I don't know what bus it was. I don't know who worked on it. I don't know what parts we used, how long it took. Having your vehicle history and all of that kind of under one umbrella, you can simply go in, type in transmission repairs we've done, and find that history, find the attached vehicle, parts, labor, all of that kind of under one umbrella. So you talked about the data. There's a lot of data involved, but it's got to be really easy for them to find, whether they pull it up on a phone or they log into the computer and see that full history for each vehicle, right?
Absolutely. Or trigger, right? There could be something going on that looking at reports is tedious and you're looking for a needle in the haystack. And that's usually the problem with the tons of data. I'm a big advocate of tell me things I don't know about. Those are the things I want to know. Give me indicators. See what I don't know about. Like, oh wow, I didn't know about this. Great. It's when you flipping through. Remember those days? My son will never know what a phone book means. Phone books, right? No one. He's not gonna know it. But remember that going through it, and you're trying to look for something. Obviously, it's alpha order. But imagine if it wasn't. You just looking through things to find out someone's phone number and so forth. But that's the type of data that you want to be alerted. You want to be notified specific things. Again, if everything is an emergency, but everything is a priority, you know what that means, then nothing's really a priority anymore. So this is where you get to pick.
So I know hearing from Palmer and Chase's team there, one good example is just let me know how much money I've spent on a vehicle, right? let me know this year, how much is this costing me? Tony, you're giving a good example earlier of, when it's time to replace a vehicle. My assumption was always, it's the oldest one. Whatever bus is getting old, it's time to push it out. But I've heard enough from the fleet mechanics that that's not the case, right? The reality is there's that clunker. There's that one that's costing you money. But without the data, without having it all in one place, how easily can you kind of identify those things, right?
I think, I don't know if some of you guys golf. Every once in a while, I go golf with my friends, my family. And, you're like, oh, I lost my ball. You lose your golf balls. And there's a saying, don't get attached to golf balls. Don't go out there and play with your favorite golf ball. It's the same thing. Don't get attached to these buses. If it's time to go, it's time to go, and it's okay. There'll be other use for these vehicles. And I think this is where, you got to look at when is that time. And by the way, what can we do to get another year or maybe 2 out of this vehicle? Remember, there's the other piece too.
Tony, we got some great questions coming in here, so I'll just bring them up as we're flowing. Chad over at River Bend here is asking about some basic functions he's looking for, things like standard repair times, SRT times. Is there a way to be able to track those standard repairs? So, you know how long it should take for an oil change, how long brakes should be able to change out. Absolutely. We can track on repair codes what a standard repair time is. And then Trace was talking about it earlier. Maybe you want to actually track your technician's actual time using a stopwatch or clock in, clock out feature, so you can see where we going over those standard repairs. Same with some of these industry standard pieces. VRMS is a big one that we hear about. We allow you to manage really kind of customized repair codes, whether you're using an industry standard like VRMS, or maybe you're creating your own kind of internal repair codes. Servicefinder is flexible enough. We can kind of work with you during that implementation to set it up with either.
And Zach, usually I love, having standardized codes. I love that. But there's also a, throwing the baby with the bathwater concept that if it's something you're doing, it's working, whatever codes you're doing, we recommend continued using what you're using, because at this point, the last thing you want to do is introduce brand new terminology with your mechanics and your staff that they're saying, great, we got a new product, and all of a sudden we're calling a wrench something else. And you see, those are the things that it just, it's that friction, right? To learn something new. And we want to eliminate that. As much as I love new standards, of course, and always use standards, I'm also go slow. Maybe, rename your codes slowly. It's got to work for you.
That's right. I hear that all the time. Look, if you have a paper work order that your technicians love to fill it out, how can we make our digital work order form look just like that, right? Don't make their life change too much.
Right.
Tony, I moved on to the slide here. I've got our scheduled maintenance. This is so key, the ability to manage preventative maintenance. And I know Trace talked about this a little bit as well. With our system, you're capturing odometer readings, right? And we give you a few ways to do this. We're looking at pulling in fuel records. We're allowing you to submit vehicle inspection forms. However, we can capture the current odometer. And that way your technicians know when that preventative maintenance is coming due. Anytime I'm talking to somebody that's doing a manual operation there and they've got the big chalkboard or a big whiteboard calendar, you're going to miss some pieces there. There's going to be inspections that get missed. And we all know how much more costly that is to have that breakdown happen on the road rather than to catch it during your inspections, right? One big piece here too, going into work orders, Tony, is going back to the conversation about ease of use. Trace mentioned that we recently reincorporated the stopwatch, the timekeeping kind of functionality for work orders. The reason is we actually had this in our legacy software, but people really struggled to use it. It just was not very user-friendly. Part of that is they're out in the shop, they have their phone, they have their tablet. They need to be able to quickly just say, hey, I'm starting work or I'm stopping work. They can't go sit down at a computer terminal, log in, pull up the work order, do all of that work. So going to a more mobile-friendly interface has made, capturing things like managing parts and inventory, managing labor hours, managing work order, all of this, these kind of pieces much easier to do, and we're seeing a lot more utilization of some of those tools with our clients now, right?
Yeah, you know, it's funny that you're saying this because we didn't think it was being used that much. So like, you know, the stopwatch concept, the timers, it's low usage from the legacy system when we upgraded over a year and a half ago. We thought, oh, well, maybe as a priority, maybe we don't incorporate that feature. Really, the feedback was it's not that people were not using that feature, they didn't like the way it worked. And that's such a big deal right there. So it's a little shocker there, Zach. We thought, you know, we're of all the things to take one product and build a brand new one from scratch, and then all the data that you've been maintaining for years, all that's coming to the new platform. We prioritize that feature. It's like, you know, no one's gonna miss it. It's okay. Rick, we don't need air conditioning in the car. No one's using it, right? And I mean, a little sarcastic about that, but like, wow, that was and so we immediately added this, and I'm clearly having a more mobile-friendly product, key, because now everyone's could just walk around with a laptop. So some of our clients actually have a tablet. It's mounted near a mechanic or some computers. I see some, they're right in the middle of your garages, and they go right there and they type away and so forth. So I mean, that was a good one right there. Good one.
Yeah. So on the slides here, we've got a few examples of what a user could see from a mobile interface. You can imagine a technician walks in the morning, they log into the tablet, or they even pull out a phone. They could see, hey, here's the work orders we have assigned. They can open up a work order. They can assign parts. That's a big one, right? You walk back to the shop, just scan parts right out and be able to assign the parts to your work order. You can manage your time, say, hey, I'm starting work on this. Let me pause. I got to go work on this other one. They can do all of this from a mobile device. And again, we heard over and over from Chase and Craig how important that usability is to really having success with the software. So,
and it's going to get better because we know that the mobile experience is a key at this point. So it's going to get better and better for sure.
So parts and inventory came up a little bit too, with our panelists there. You know, I'll be honest. I talk to a lot of technicians all day looking at software and generally ask, you know, what's parts and inventory management look like today? It's on the to-do list. You know, they're planning to get back there and start managing it. But really, for me, that just means they don't have the right tools to simplify that process, because we all know how much potential cost savings there is, knowing what do I have actually in stock before I go and reorder a new box of that. Do I have similar or substitute parts from another manufacturer? All that information, like you said, Tony, can be alerted to you. So as I scan, you know, a part and it says, hey, we don't have it in stock, the system should let you know, but we do have this similar piece over here. Or it should let you know, hey, you've only got about 10 of these in stock. Based on your utilization, it's probably time to reorder another set of these because you're going through them quick. Bringing these kind of reminders here.
Zach, I mean, I'm not a big bulk person that buys things in bulk. I'm really not, because I like to eat things fresh. But there's certain things you can buy in bulk. There's no expiration. You know, paper towels. There might be an opportunity to say, how many rolls of paper towels do we use throughout the year at the house? Well, then let's get some big bulk, significant savings right there. I mean, those are the things that, you really know how many things you're using? Are you ordering on the fly? You could actually have some conversation with some of your parts distributors saying, you know, I've been buying a lot of these things from you here. You know, maybe you could then go back and negotiate. I mean, Craig, is there something you would do to go back and to see, hey, I'm buying a lot of these, you know, number 15 bolts. I'm just making it up. Is it reasonable to say that you go back to your distributor saying, you know, can I get a better deal? Am I nuts to say this?
No, that's very reasonable. And that's one of the other parts of it. You can see the history right there at your fingertips of what you used in the past and what you're going to need in the future. You can plan that stuff. And we actually do that exact concept. We just did it recently with wheels. and hubs. We bought a bunch of them in bulk by a pallet because we knew what we were going to use for the next couple of years, and we got a discount on them. So they're on
great.
hand and we'll have them.
Wonderful. And Trace, you guys have so many vehicles. The part where some things are warranty, out of warranty, right? That kind of stuff. So obviously that is massive. And if something you're buying that you have to keep replacing and it's still within warranty, I would start questioning like, what's going on here? Yeah, thank goodness that I was able to get it repaired or at a reduced or at no cost because it still was within the window, right, of the warranty. But would you see yourself saying, hey, what's up here? Is this just bad batch? What's going on here, right? I mean, does that make sense, what I'm saying, Trace?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that definitely sometimes comes into question. And, I know at Palmer, we have kind of looked at that over the years of, what types of school buses do we want in our fleet? Are they Bluebird? Are they Thomas International? What kind of school buses, are we going to be purchasing that we've seen last longer and don't have, issues like you were speaking of?
Well, again, your different region means, there's they all have strengths. And if you look at the Southwest airline model, they went with the 737, right? They all that. And you can't really do that in school busing because you do need different use case for buses. But the whole idea is that they're all the same model. If there's a problem with one of the 737 for Southwest, they'll just replace one, and all of a sudden nobody knows the difference. And that's the model. I know so many of you guys are very loyal to the manufacturers, which that's okay, that's good. But the reason is that your whole group just knows how to work with the parts, and this is where some people do mix and match on different manufacturers. Maybe you're experimenting. Obviously, Craig, New York's going to go through a lot with the electric buses. So there's a few companies that are doing that right now. And so, yeah, track this. And that's why you want Servicefinder. Track data, because data is going to be even bigger as we add other types
We're actually getting ready to purchase 2 electric buses. And although they're second generation, so it's kind of a new concept, we're going to track the actual cost of ownership using the Servicefinder, because we do that with our current buses. That's the only way to get an actual cost of ownership is to
that's great.
track it.
That's great. And of course, once you add our routing piece in there, we know the miles, we know how far it's going. We also, you want to talk about big data, you also know the driver. Maybe you have a Tony out there that's driving a little bit rough, maybe, flooring it, and you realize, like, wait a minute, same 2 vehicle, but the difference is one Zach's driving, the other one is Tony's driving. This is the data I'm talking about. I know I'm getting a little bit over the top on data, but that's what I'm talking about. It's that slight edge, because when you have a fleet size as big as yours, Trace, those will be serious money right there.
Well, we're talking so much about data, Tony, and I know you said this is a piece he thinks really key, right? So just wrapping up here with really the reports and dashboards and data that you can get out of the system, right? So many use cases that we've seen for the kind of customizable dashboards that we're building. We've talked about some pieces already here. Just what are my costs for the year? What's my cost per mile, my cost per ownership for the bus there? What's my staff utilization, right? How many hours have staff worked on work orders this week? How long are our work orders taking us on average? All of this kind of information, we're capturing all of it. That means we're going to give ways for you to be able to visualize this data. A really good use case I saw even for dashboards is one that you can have right in the shop, right? Right now, an operation had drivers coming in saying, hey, what's going on with my bus? It came in 2 days ago. When's it going to be ready? They could have a dashboard that keeps track of work orders, statuses, part delays, things like that. So somebody can walk in, take a look, see where their bus is at, and totally know what's going on with their operation. Again, it's bringing all of that data to the stakeholders that really need it, right?
I love that part, that you you could just look up on a big screen and what's going on, what's the status. Especially if you're a driver and you reported some defects, you can literally see on a screen on what's going on with your bus. That's kind of cool. I hope somebody is building those type of dashboards. If not, get a hold of us and we'll build them for you. That way other people can use it. That was the whole idea of having these dashboards, not with somebody sitting in front of a computer, but also just on a big, get more screen. You could go to Best Buy for a couple $100 and get yourself huge screens. All right, maybe you can't watch the 4K movies on it, but but I'm serious. These are things that it motivates the group, saying that's technology at work at this point.
That's right. And, of course, not all of your stakeholders are going to be users of the software. They're not all logging in every day. That's why it's really important that we can bring the data to you, right? Things like scheduled reports that bring these kind of key metrics to you into your inbox on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, however you need to see it. That makes sure everybody's getting the information. Craig, I know you mentioned, who was it? The assistant super at the district was getting information out of it.
Yeah, the actually bookkeeper and the treasurer were, and the business manager. And he actually got into Servicefinder because he wanted to know, because he knew there was changes coming down the line with staffing.
Impressive. Well, if your treasurer would love the info, but you don't think they're going to learn your platform, Servicefinder is the tool, right? Because it can just send that email out with the information they need to. Like, last big key takeaway that I had, Tony, and what I wanted to share is software is becoming such a big piece of this industry and the work that we're doing, because things really have changed so much, and it's really about finding ways to run your operation safer and more efficiently, right? With software, we know that the return on investment is going to be huge for operations, right? Being able to catch the preventative maintenance, be able to understand where their money's going, where their time's going, what their parts and inventory look like. All of this can make operations run a lot leaner, and they're going to be able to do a lot more with less, right? And that's what we've heard across the board as we look at our clients that have started implementing this in. But I would love to hear from all of our panelists there. Any last key takeaways that you may want to share with us?
Sure. I'll tell you, it changes your mechanics' life and it changes their outlook on their jobs. It really does. Once they get their hands on this technology, it changes their whole mindset. They become a whole different person. I've watched these guys change, and when they can see what they're going to do for the day, without surprises or minimal surprises, their attitudes change. And, in this business over here on this side of it, we say that safety's an attitude. And sometimes, mechanics' jobs are not easy. And this does help make their job substantially easier.
Yeah, I would say for us, we are still new at using Servicefinder. We've just finished up our training as a company, so we are very looking forward to having more data that is being put in, so we can get those reports and use those dashboards to really see where we're spending money and where can we save money. And I think Tony kind of said too, there might be a lot of back work that you have to do to get Servicefinder ready to use. But once you're done with that, how easy it is to be able to find what you need and for your mechanics and staff to be able to go in and look for what they need to do. And we've definitely heard that from our staff and our mechanics of how easy it is for them to go in there and do their work orders or search for a vehicle. So overall, we are loving Servicefinder.
Awesome. I'm going to ask Zach and Tony to give me briefly your takeaways, what you want people to take, and then we'll close it out. Tony?
I get one of the takeaway, of course, just looking in the future, a lot of technology going to be on a bus, especially the electric vehicles or the hybrid. It's really going to be changing very fast. So we recognize that we want to get as much data out of these vehicles as possible, especially from the onboard diagnostic ports. Those are the things we want to be able to pull, really data that's coming live, not the visuals, but things that you can't see. Something's going on with the engine. Maybe it's running hot, or maybe something's going on with the transmission. Those type of things that we want to make sure that that data is pulled. So we're starting to see other companies that we're working with that have the hardware, have the technology, and we're pulling. Of course, Zonar is one of our big partner that we pull that data. And there's others out there that have data, but they pull it into their system, and then you have to go and hunt it down. We will make actions with it.
Very good. Thank you, Tony. Zach?
And just really to not look at technology as an obstacle to what you're trying to do, right? And that is a feeling I've gotten in the fleet management world. But, maybe that was because working with the wrong partners, working with the wrong technology. Our goal really is to find ways for our technology to help make your job easier, to make you more efficient, to make your life a little bit easier, right?
Awesome. Thank you. Well, one of my takeaways is just data-driven decisions. Data. Not going by your feelings. Zach, when you said the oldest bus may not be the one to replace, that's a data decision as opposed to a gut decision. Also, Tony, we got to work on golf ball finder, but that's another conversation for another day. I want to remind everybody that this is being recorded, and we will get it out there on our YouTube channel and all over the place. So if you missed it, a colleague of yours couldn't make it. Obviously, didn't miss it because you were here. But if a colleague missed it, you can share it, or you can send it to your superintendent, or you can send it to your school board. Also, you'll have a survey coming in. We'd love to get your feedback on that because, again, we make data-driven decisions based on you. So please take that survey, and we'll follow up. So I want to thank everybody again. I want to thank our panelists, Trace, Craig. Thanks so much. So many insights. Hope everybody has a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Have a good summer, everybody.